Welcome, friends,
to the How To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world.
Whoa.
Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Giddy up.
Guys.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Oh, just avuncular as all hell.
Yes. More uncle every day.
Yeah.
That's right.
You didn't think it was possible? I didn't think it was possible. They said it couldn't be done. We're
That's
more
right.
uncle-y every day.
Who are they? Shut up.
Yeah. Shut your fuck up. That's who they are.
I like shut your fuck up.
Shut your fuck up. I do too. That's the new one. That's new.
That's the new one.
Yeah. So
We
we're
got
gonna,
catchphrases, people.
we kind of did something this week that we think is kind of fun. Where we just decided we're going to go God to God.
Yep.
God to God.
God
It's
to
the
God
showdown.
to God.
It's the showdown on hallowed ground.
That's right. It's the three-way by the freeway. It's the battle of the gods. There's a big dust up in the graveyard of the gods this week, and it's pretty fun.
We all decided to dig somebody up. So
And the body count is extremely moderate.
Yeah.
yeah,
As things
truly.
go.
Go ahead, Dad. Sorry.
For three gods coming into coming out of the graveyard, you would think that the body count would be enormous.
Considering
just
the
going
cultures,
by past gods.
Yeah, the cultures these three come from, you would think it would be an impressive pile.
Yep.
But it's not.
We thought we'd give you three completely pointless and not that violent gods, and so you're welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
enjoy
there
that.
you
That
go.
will never happen again. And,
Correct.
And so I'm going to start with. Well, it's a movie, it's a murder, and it's got a snake dick.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I am going to get us all blazed as shit.
And then I'm gonna end it with a nice Italian course.
Yeah, little pasta course at the end, and then we have another thing to announce this week, guys.
Oh yeah.
We are going to have a Zoom meetup on Wednesday the 29th. Not the next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that.
Yeah.
At the 29th at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is where we live.
For many of you listening, this will be next Wednesday for you.
Yeah.
That's right. So Wednesday the 29th, everybody's invited. We'll have some fun. We'll laugh. We'll cry. We'll learn a little something about ourselves and each other.
It's just to keep to keep our psyches alive and well during this time of the hatches being battened down.
Yeah.
We just want to reach out and everybody see everybody's faces for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. And we had an in-person meetup, and we were sorely needing to have another one or two after the first year of our podcast, and it went great. We had so much fun and met tons of great people. So let's do it again. Let's do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does one get to this Zoom, Uncle Mark?
So you need to send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com, and sometime before we go live with it, we will send you a link to the Hangout, and it's that easy. It is an open bar.
Yeah.
You're able to drink as much as you want from your own supply, and so will we. And we'll say hey.
Yep. And if we get to 200 people, Uncle Doug will smush his testicles against the camera. That's a promise.
We're going to ask Uncle Doug.
You just went to $199, buddy.
We're going to ask Uncle Doug and all of you to please remain moderately clothed, if
We're
possible.
not shaming. You know what? Maybe it's laundry day.
You know what? I haven't put pants on in 5 weeks. I'm not going to start now.
So come on in, join us. The water's fine. It's going to be fun, and we'll see each other's smiling faces and get through it.
But remember, we're not posting this link on anything because we don't want to be bombed by people who aren't a part of it. So you have to take the initiative and write to us at howtoheretic.com.
Yeah,
right.
We don't want Ken Ham popping up again. He's fucked up a lot of our Zooms, and I'm just done with it. I'm just done with it. Right?
I think it's cute, but it's okay.
Stupid face. All right, cool. Well, with that, let's do a show.
Uncle Dan.
Hey!
There is a region of this good earth that is probably can be rightly said to be the source of all of its troubles.
Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But, this region of the world has been troubled for a long, long time, and I think Uncle Mark is going to tell us a little bit about some of those troubles.
We're talking about the middle of the river.
The mess in Potamia.
That's right. The space between the rivers. And I know we've been spending a lot of time there, guys, but we're going back. We're going to dip another toe in the Euphrates this week, I'm afraid. So this past week, I thought, I might dig into one of my favorite go-tos for a segment, and that is cults. And I was going to do one our friend Esther has been egging me to do for a while. But when I got into it, it was kind of a bummer. I know. A cult story could also be a bummer. Huge surprise, right?
Weird. Who's ever heard of such a thing?
So rather than that, I spun the creaky old wheel on the gate of the graveyard of the gods, and no whammies, luckily. I got a nice old classic that has made a couple of appearances close to our end of the timeline as well. I have, for what I swear, pretty random reasons, found myself talking a lot about Assyrian and Sumerian and Babylonian thingies of late. They do have a way of popping up frequently when your podcast is religious critique and the origins of religious ideas, however. So we've shown that certain parts of Genesis, very specifically Noah, is a pretty direct theft from the much more ancient Near Eastern flood myths of Utnapishtim and Ziusudra, for just one example. But today's subject does not appear to have ended up making the cut to get in the Bible, which is too bad. But his rival in the ancient Assyrian pantheon did, kind of. Anyway, we'll get there. Who is this fellow? And he is a fellow. Why, he is Pazuzu. Pazuzu. Which,
look, it helps to sell the lie if you don't laugh when you say it.
I know.
If you're going to make up a guide, you got to keep a straight face.
It's a stupid name for a scary guy. To me, it either sounds like a Chinese knockoff for a mid-grade Japanese car, or it sounds like Joseph Smith made it up in a moment of panic, meaning that some shit town in rural Utah would end up being called Pazuzu. Dumb name you got there, Pazuzu. So, and it's funny he's got such a kazoo-based name because he is kind of a scary-looking fucker. He's got sort of a dog or big cat-looking horned head with a big snarl, huge teeth, an emaciated scale-covered body, a wicked set of grasshopper-looking double wings, which are cool, huge bird claw feet and hands, and best of all, a snake dick. Yep.
Woo!
That's, maybe his dad, the god Hanby, gave him that screwball name so he'd grow up tough like the boy named Sue in that Johnny Cash song. But I don't think any further taunting, toxically male, negative reinforcement was necessary to make this collage of tooth and wing and claw more frightening.
I need a clarification, Uncle Mark. Does he have the dick of a snake, or a snake as a dick?
Yes, he's got a teeny retractable penis. No, it's like a cobra dick. It's got a head of a cobra snake. So he's an impressive lineage. So Pazuzu seems to have reached the height of his popularity in the first millennium BCE. And while he's pretty much a demon, the distinction between god and demon wasn't super clear for the Assyrians. In fact, the gods mostly seem to be somewhere on the spectrum from disinterested in human affairs at best to utterly amoral at worst. It seems similar to when we talked about the main god of the Conan of the Barbarian universe, Crom, in episode 93. Your best bet was just not to be noticed by them. So we discussed the oldest known flood story, that of the boat-having hero Ziusudra, a couple of weeks ago in episode 133. In that, the gods had it up to their elaborately braided beards with the noise of the suddenly overabundant humans they had created. So it was flood time. The god Enki whispered through the wall for Ziusudra to get his shit in his canoe and hang on tight, which he did. So humanity survived, and the gods weren't super stoked about it. So they decided to shorten human lifespans and throw a bunch of random sand into the gears of the average human life, like loss of children, disease, disaster, etc. And Pazuzu and the other demons were birthed by the gods as part of that grim New Deal.
Fun.
So Pazuzu was the king of the wind gods / demons. He was the demon of the south wind and southwest winds, which were apparently the winds that mattered in Mesopotamia. They brought the summer rain. They brought drought in the summer and rain and floods in the rainy season. Wind from the west or southwest was way too wet or way too dry. It was totally extra, guys. So give him a broom and a pointy hat, and he'd be the Wicked Witch of the West. But despite his fearsome visage and very off-putting snake dick, now that's an icebreaker on a Grindr hookup. It's like, hey, wow, your dick is an actual snake. Holy cow, look at the time.
You say off-putting. I say there are potentials there.
You are on a different Grindr than I am, but we'll swap at the end.
I'm on FetLife. It's okay. Don't worry.
I think that app is called Slither.
I'm on for farmers only. So, but despite that, and bringing drought and floods, he was not what we would describe as a particularly wicked person. Remember when I said the gods of Mesopotamia were indifferent to human affairs at best? He mostly didn't give a shit, but he could actually be helpful and offer his protection, especially against the dreadful Lamashtu. She was a real piece of work, and unlike the chaotic neutrality of most of the rest of the gods, she was 100% chaotic evil, especially loving to cause stillbirths and the deaths of infants, who she would then steal away and crack their bones to suck out their marrow, just like Kellyanne Conway. There's this spooky incantation against Lamashtu that I think is kind of cool, which goes, "Great is the daughter of heaven who tortures babies. Her hand is a net. Her embrace is death. She is cruel, raging, angry, predatory, a runner. A thief is the daughter of heaven. She touches the bellies of women in labor. She pulls out the pregnant women's baby. The daughter of heaven is one of the gods, her brothers, with no child of her own. Her head is a lion's head. Her body is a donkey's body. She roars like a lion. She constantly howls like a demon dog."
Wow.
That was to ward her off?
Yeah, exactly. That she seems nice, though. But anyway, if you attracted the attention of Pazuzu, always a risky proposition, when you were pregnant or had an infant, he would protect you from his hated rival Lamashtu. Oh. And you would attract his attention by having a very small amulet or statue bearing his fearsome likeness. Emphasis on very small. This would be what's called an object of apotropaic magic. Uncle Dan talked about this sort of thing in his segment on the evil eye in episode 62. It's basically an amulet to ward off evil, like these little depictions of Pazuzu that pregnant ladies would wear. And it is this issue of size of the image that brings us to a strange modern manifestation of this nearly lost to obscurity god demon with a Marx Brothers style name, Pazuzu. In William Friedkin's 1973 horror milestone, The Exorcist, Father Marin, played by the wonderful and just recently deceased Max von Sydow, is on an archaeological dig in Iraq when he unearths just such a piece of apotropaic magic. A small stone head of the god of wind and plague, Pazuzu.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
This sets off an eerie, wordless 10-minute segment of Father Marin stumbling around the ancient ruins and a market area until he eventually finds himself in the shadow of a life-sized Pazuzu statue in the windy emptiness of the ancient city. If you haven't watched it in a while, this opening sequence is so dreamy and disorienting. It's an absolutely brilliant and unexpected way to start a movie. The use of disconnected environmental sounds to evoke a sort of voice for Pazuzu is genius. I had forgotten about this, so I watched this opening when I was reading about it the other day. It's genius.
Huh.
I have not seen The Exorcist I've seen it many times, but I haven't watched it in probably 2-3 years, maybe a little longer.
There's a guy who does a whole breakdown of this on YouTube, but does a breakdown of the opening sequence that's I can't remember the name of the guy. I could put it in the show notes, but it's genius.
I still haven't seen it.
Really? Uncle Dan, we should do it holds up very well. Some of the effects are a little hokey, but that's, I mean, I don't want to quibble. It's an incredibly unnerving movie.
It's pretty spooky. But this opening is basically him encountering this ancient evil, right? So the point of this size, as I was talking about, according to experts on the Mesopotamian pantheon, you would not ever make a depiction of Pazuzu of this size because it would attract his fullest attention. And one would not want that. And not to gild the lily too much with the Grindr hookup snake dick joke, but when it came to depictions of Mesopotamian gods, size mattered a lot. But as you may have guessed, somehow Pazuzu's attention was attracted to Father Merrin, and he would later confront this ancient evil in the form of young Reagan, played by Linda Blair, whose teenage body Pazuzu had inhabited, and then it was off to the head-spinning, green vomit-spitting races. And when I say the name is silly, hearing the demon speaking through a young girl and trying to say it in a menacing kind of way is a bit hilarious. It takes you out of the horror for a second, which I think was probably a mistake. Even more horribly, someone else seems to have attracted Pazuzu's attention in too great a measure in recent years. There is some light violence in the following paragraph. Be prepared. A very disturbed young man by the name of John Lawson took a dark turn from popular high school athlete to deranged semi-cult leader by his early 20s. He eventually ended up covered in tattoos, face included, and I'm not tattoo shaming. I think good ones are super awesome, and even face ones can work. But his were like those hideous scribbles or blots of the very much cracked out homemade variety. He filed his teeth to points, with which he used to kill small animals. He lived in absolute squalor and filth, yet somehow attracted plenty of women and girls from among Raleigh Durham's outcasts, two of which would later describe themselves as his fiancées. So long story short, he and these women would end up implicated in 2 ritual homicides, and Lawson would end up dying under mysterious circumstances in his jail cell in 2015. Oh, and I forgot to mention John Lawson had legally changed his name to Pazuzu Algarad in 2002, apparently taking his inspiration from the teenage girl haunting antagonist in The Exorcist. So art imitates myth, and then life imitates art, imitates murder, or whatever other fucked up way you want to say it. So it seems
I was really
like
hoping you were going to tell us that his dick was made of a snake, but okay.
Well, it could have been. So it seems like when it comes to Pazuzu, less is more, you guys. Oh, and a quick aside from that nightmare. Remember when I said Pazuzu didn't make the cut for the Bible, but his rival Lamashtu seems to have sneaked in?
Oh, yeah.
Well, she kind of did under a new name, that being Lilith.
Oh, yeah.
And you can listen to what I forgot was a very good segment, if I do say so myself, about Lilith in episode 56. Like Lamashtu, the later demon Lilith causes miscarriages and bedevils babies and new mothers, and both are associated with nighttime and birds as well as flight. Lilith's association with the Old Testament is very complicated. Again, go listen to the segment. She appears in it, not by name, a couple times. But she does appear in the King James Version of Isaiah by name in a very strange passage that includes haunting ostriches. So right, she made the cut. And some people believe that Pazuzu almost made it, but not exactly into the Bible as we know it. Pazuzu, or maybe a version of him, can be found in a very odd, non-canonical little story called The Testament of Solomon. Have you guys ever heard of that?
No.
Yes.
You have heard of the Testament of Solomon?
Yeah.
It seems it's very magic-y, and it reads like Faustus with all kinds of incantations and tricking demons.
Right.
So the Testament of Solomon is of unclear origin, but it claims to be a first-hand account, which of course it isn't, of the building of Solomon's temple.
Right.
In it, the Archangel Michael gives Solomon a magic ring with a pentagram on it. With it, and through some trickery, Solomon is able to enslave 36 demons and force them to build his temple, which is really awesome because demons are well known for their excellent craftsmanship in stonemasonry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys, their chisel work is unbelievable.
Yeah, totally. Measure twice, cut once. That's where it comes from. Demons. Anyway, he has a lad of some kind put the ring around the spout of an empty wineskin, and with it captures, quote, a wind demon that was harassing Arabia, whose name was Ephipas, whose wind power was sufficient to lift the temple's massive cornerstone in place. And as weird as this little tale is,
that's
it is
Storm
believed that
in the X-Men version.
That's Storm, exactly. And see, there's no original ideas. So it's believed that the breezy Arabian wind demon Ephipas was our spooky old zoological pastiche, Johnny Q. Pazuzu. And that, my friends, is the end. So blow away, Pazuzu. You've caused quite enough trouble around these parts.
Pazuzu.
Wow. Yep, that's it.
That's a hell of a dude.
Yeah. Kind of watch
right.
The Exorcist. He's a very spooky character.
You know, this is not the first time that The Exorcist has come up on our show, and now I do feel like I need to watch that show. So I'll have to sort that out.
As soon as you can get some time on your hands.
Yeah.
Where am I going to find any time? I'm completely underwater right
Watch
now.
a movie in this economy?
What with this show and all the drinking, I don't know where I'll squeeze it in.
And all the peeing in the closet.
Right? Yeah.
I buried the lead there. All right. Well, let's move on.
That's a reference that only our patrons will know. So
that's right.
There you go, everybody. There's motivation to be a patron. Right there.
Yep. You'll get to hear about a lot of peeing in closets. So with that, farewell, Pazuzu.
Adios.
Uncle Doug.
Uncle Mark.
You know, we got to build the wall.
Yeah, clearly.
We got to build the wall. And it's not because I want to keep out the hardworking people that get paid shit and treated terribly that actually make the economy go rather than hedge fund managers. No, it's not that. There's some spooky shit that I want to keep out. And I think that wall would help.
At this point, I think we should build a wall along the Mexican border to protect them from us.
I think they are probably on. I think that's one they're willing to pay for.
Yeah, exactly. It turns out they actually end up paying for the wall.
Maybe that's been Trump's plan the whole time. Just make America so shitty that Mexico will pay for the wall to keep us out.
Exactly.
Well,
and then Trump.
I know where he can get a lightly used mission accomplished banner.
Trump will be laying in a hospital bed like Joe Bluth and go, ta-da!
Well, Uncle Mark, I know of what you speak in terms of some of the spooky shit that exists in Central America. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to get very spooky, actually. To be perfectly honest with you,
that's unusual. That's unusual for that the pantheon of that area.
You would think, yes, indeed. For my entry into our little battle of the gods, I want you both to turn your minds to ancient Mesoamerican art. I know you both have been to some sorts of Mexican ruins and maybe some museums with old stone statuary, etc.
I've trod a pyramid in my day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So in that vein, I want you to picture a stone carving from the late post-classical period of Aztec art. I know that you're both right there with me.
Yes.
This is not ancient stuff. This is somewhere around the 1450 to 1500 CE zone.
Oh, it's a newish.
Yeah, I guess so. This little guy would be about 4 feet high. It's a sculpture of a dude sitting cross-legged with his left hand resting on his knee and the right hand kind of hovering above his other knee. His head is facing up toward the sky and his mouth is half open in an expression somewhere between pain and ecstasy.
Okay.
Oh, and his body is covered with different flowers.
All right.
Now I want you to try to imagine the last time you were sitting on the ground, not knowing what to do with your hands and staring slack-jawed at the sky. What were you doing?
I may, let's see, do we have to talk to Andrew Torres about these answers before we give them?
Well, I'll just say this, and we'll get to that part. Our friend Xochipili, I'm never going to be able to say it right, Xochipili, which in the Aztec language of Nahuatl means flower prince, was apparently tripping balls.
Really?
Yes, the flowers that this cat was really interested in aren't just for decorating your dining table. This guy's flowers are for decorating your mind, man.
Oh.
The flowers adorning his... Right? The flowers adorning his body were things like the tobacco flower, morning glory, the seeds of which may or may not become psychoactive with just a little bit of preparation, and mushroom caps. And I'm assuming these were not shiitakes.
Really?
Yes. Xochipili was that guy that you know who is super chill off in the corner of the party and always has a sweet little half smile on his face as he nods along to pretty much everything everybody says.
Never seen that guy.
Right?
Yeah.
But if someone mentions Timothy... Right. But if someone at the party mentions Timothy Leary or Ram Dass, becomes suddenly very animated with the zeal of 1,000 missionaries. Now, I'm sure that none of us sainted uncles would have any knowledge of what it's like to take an entheogenic substance.
Legally, we do not. No.
That is a new word to me. So we'll just have to do our best to discuss this with only academic understanding of the field.
It's been described to me by a friend.
Indeed. I think you guys have read about these illegal substances even more than I have, or maybe we've all just done a bit of reading, but from some different books. Anyway,
I spent probably most of my 30s reading extensively.
Just doing some study, right?
Just in a very dry, academic, legally acceptable way for broadcast. I did a lot of research. Yeah, most of my 30s. I probably continued upper division, upper level stuff into my 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I'm very knowledgeable academically.
Indeed. So the word entheogen, which is new to me, it is a newish word in general, actually. It's a neologism meant to replace words like hallucinogen or psychedelic. Its main meaning refers to drugs that are or were used in religious or spiritual contexts. But what does religious really even mean, man?
Maybe my religion is the mountains, dude.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that
Have you ever been to the San Rafael Swell?
Whoa.
Well,
you just blew my mind, dude.
I know.
Yeah, man, it's like way too immense to boil down to something as reductive as like religion, right? Like it's so much more than you can even understand. Wouldn't you
God
say?
is horizontal. He is everywhere.
Time is a flat circle, all of it. Absolutely. So anyway, an entheogen, for those who don't know, is a psychoactive substance that alters one's perception, mood, cognition, behavior, or, and this is the word to listen for if you want to know if somebody has actually tried these, consciousness. The root of the word is entheos, which translates from Greek as something along the lines of full of God, which, as anyone who's ever had a discussion with someone who just got back from an ayahuasca ceremony can attest, is definitely how people like to talk about these substances.
Yes, indeed.
I tend to think they're full of something else, but it's all subjective, really.
Yeah.
That said, it really can't be denied that these substances can have extremely powerful effects on a person. The spectrum runs from the deeply personal and incredibly healing to full and permanent psychotic breaks from reality. There's very little proper scientific study done of these drugs, however, because in the 70s, they were classified as a Schedule I drug by the federal government, meaning they had low or no medicinal value and high potential for abuse. Now, if you want hours and hours of discourse on why they were classified this way, including probable racist and anti-dissident motivations, please feel free to whisper a question about it within a 3-mile radius of any white man with dreadlocks.
Well, let me just say now that once they were Schedule I and government was on the case, they're just impossible to find.
Yeah, you can't get them anymore.
But it's true that it limited the research into this extremely interesting and potentially incredibly helpful field of psychology, etc. Because they were just made blanket illegal. You can't do research on them.
Right, and we are starting to come back out of that. There is some science that's starting to be done, and there's a lot of potential in terms of medicine and all this sort of stuff. But don't think that we have good science about it, because we don't yet.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I do want to take this moment to give an Uncle public service announcement. While it's unlikely that these drugs are anywhere near as dangerous as Nancy Reagan would have had you believe, if you're thinking of trying a psychedelic, which we do not officially recommend or endorse, please do some research about things like possible interactions with prescription drugs you might take. For example, people who take SSRIs for depression, that's serotonin reuptake inhibitors, who then try LSD, can actually die from too much serotonin.
Jesus, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So death is a pretty nasty side effect, and I would be wary of that. So, yeah, just do a little bit of research before you try anything.
Yeah, and I'll do a quick, if I can jump onto that, I'll do a quick public service announcement too. Is I, as you all know, I spend a lot of time in Vancouver. There's a huge habitual drug use issue in Vancouver, and the fuckers who sell this stuff have been cutting all kinds of our narcotics that people buy, street narcotics people buy, with fentanyl, which is an incredibly dangerous multiplier. So whatever you are doing, and we're not suggesting you do anything, my God, please be careful when you're not doing it.
Yeah, I think it's good advice whenever ingesting anything that is unregulated or of unknown origins to do the research that you can do, because you never know.
Yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there because so much of the messaging about things, about especially psychedelics and especially plant-based, plant origin things, is that they're harmless, man. There's nothing that can happen. It's nature, and the man's just trying to keep us from doing it. And while there's something to that, mushrooms are probably the least dangerous thing, illegal drug that you could do. There is still danger there, and do some research before you try it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Before you don't try it.
Before you don't try it, or do try it, but without our blessing.
Yes.
Definitely without our curse. But
we love you no matter what.
We love you all the ways.
Yes.
So anyone who has tried hallucinogens before, or anyone who's gone to a rave, or even anyone who's gone camping and ended up next to a drum circle, for that matter, will be unsurprised to learn that Xochipili is also the god of art, games, beauty, dance, and song. When entheogenics are part of your spiritual practice, your interest in pretty things is 100% going to go up.
Is he the god of Van Gogh paintings?
Absolutely. That dude was praying to him.
He's the god of blacklight posters.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And swirly patterns.
He's the god of Spencer's gifts. We get it.
He's the god of Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
And
all those things.
Kaleidoscopes. It's no wonder that depictions of Xochipili, I can't even say it. Why did I write it so many times in my thing if I can't say it?
It starts with an X. It's not going to end well.
Right, exactly. It's no wonder that depictions of him are all about flowers, even when the fun parts of the plants are leaves or seeds. Visual interest is half the fun. We've been hinting at it, but we've all sort of prayed at the altar of Xochipili, all of us uncles. I think we can actually admit to that. And
what's the statute of limitations?
Right.
on a lost weekend? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's interesting. I personally feel like the concept of religion involving this makes sense to me. Because so many of my experiences, and definitely the experiences of very annoying people around me, have involved, doing something like this, and then having a big change in their whole perception of how the universe works.
Yeah.
Did that happen to either of you guys at all? Did you have any spiritual experiences?
Listen, if I were in my past, if I've ever ingested some illicit substance, officer, it was exactly 1 day past the statute of limitations.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So no, I mean it's for the many years I went to church and tried to force my mind to expand, and read what was given to me by my faith leaders. That was supposed to be, mind altering and truly remarkable and divine and ecstatic. one little mushroom cap pretty much exploded that whole fucking universe into a billion pieces. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would. Whether or not I had ever ingested anything, I'm not saying I did. I did not so much have spiritual experiences as profoundly just perspective changing.
Perspective changing is a great way to
on
put it.
the life that I was living, the life I had long lived, and the perspective shift was, I guess other people would describe it as spiritual. I don't really, but it was profound, or not. I can't say because it never happened.
Can neither confirm nor deny. Absolutely. I feel like that there's something to it that is and I think that profoundness is a good way of describing it. And I think that when you have a profound experience, I think that a lot of people, when they have a profound experience that feels like it's changed their outlook on the world, they term it as a religious experience. Mm-hmm. I don't think it needs to be that, but I certainly think a lot of people do that. And it is interesting that European-based religions, or worse yet, Middle Eastern based religions. It's funny that they don't have a chemical component to their thing, but I think that part of the problem is that you can't control people when their brains open up.
Well, and I think the reason that we tend to use the vernacular of a religious experience when we have our mind kind of blown up by a substance is because that's what religion has been, is trying to do and failing.
Right.
So that's the vernacular we've got to actually describe having your perspective broadened, or your mind shattered, or your a kinship with all living things truly felt to your core. Is we don't have another language for that, and the one we have is religion's trying to provide that experience to us. And again, let me reiterate, utterly failing.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, Dan, when you're, it's obviously the Aztecs had a different kind of religious practice and theory than, say, like Catholicism or Protestantism, because for the, like you say, those European churches, psychedelics would be no fucking good. They wouldn't work because the outcome is unpredictable. Right. You don't know you have no idea what kind of experience somebody's going to have. So that they couldn't allow that shit at all.
It's not conducive to dogma.
Right. Exactly.
Or rather, not conducive to your dogma. It might be conducive to the individual's dogma, but not the one that you want them to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Mark, in your interview last week, you guys were talking about this. But one of the tenets of a cult is to, it's to kind of have that control over the expansion or perspective in your mind, right?
Yeah. Well, to have control over your thinking. Yeah. And so for anything like Dan says, it's dogmatic, that's not going to work. But we definitely know that there are cult experiences or cults that have been set up where psychedelics were definitely used.
Yeah.
And that those experiences were then explained by the cult leader in a specific way.
Right.
The guide, someone to guide you through it, right?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you're somebody who really enjoys these things, don't be the guy who thinks he has to guide all of his friends through their trip. Be helpful, but man, my first time doing mushrooms, which I've never done, I had a guy in the group who was insistent that he was going to be our shaman through the entire thing, and just ended up annoying all of us to no end.
That's the guy who shows up to the campfire with a guitar. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
That's another public service announcement.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should get to the fact that there is another side to Xochipili, and it's possibly darker, definitely more controversial. But to get to that, we have to explore the moral beliefs of pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. Specifically, how different cultures dealt with the fact that no matter what you do, some folks just seem to like ding-donging with people of the same genital configuration that they have.
God damn it.
They're the worst.
No matter what you try, which is obviously wrong and bad and makes Jesus cry. But some of these Lamanites here in the Americas didn't seem to have gotten that memo. So, not all, though. The coolest of these cultures that I could find were the Toltecs, who were apparently not bothered at all by buggery, and which was made evident by the inscription on an ancient Toltec temple, which roughly translates to, "If you're down to clown, take it to Pound Town." That's not true. I just made that up. Anyway, the Mayans had a more complex view of gayness. For instance, if you were going to have sex before marriage, they seemed to think that gay sex was better than straight. Or at least a gay sexual experience. We'll get to it. We do know that they had orgies that included tons of gay stuff, which is cool. But apparently, if you enter through the back door, they'd kill you. So, feels like a little bit of mixed messaging there, if you ask me. The Aztecs, however, were the Puritans of Mexico. When it came to gayness, they were strict and anti. There is evidence of the ruling class getting a little frisky every so often, and conquered people being turned into sex slaves, including gay stuff. And there are even stories of ladyboy brothels around Veracruz. But for the most part, you didn't want to be gay in their empire. Again,
I think when it comes to the Aztecs, I don't think you want to be in their empire at all.
At all?
For any reason.
That's possible. Again, with the Aztecs, gayness is punishable by death, this time with differing punishments for tops whose deaths were impalement and hanging, and bottoms whose deaths were, well, they were much, much worse.
Rude. That's just bottom shaming. It's really fucking uncool.
I'm not cool with it at all.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not cool with how tops and bottoms were described on Wikipedia in the article I was reading, which was like how did they do it? It was really shameful, and I should have just gone in and changed it. Maybe I still will. Anywho, the bottoms had their entrails extracted through their anus, which I don't think you want that. And lesbians were garroted. So that's fun. Fit the punishment to the crime, I guess. Now, there's some controversy here. Some historians believe that these rules weren't really enforced. They cite Spanish chronicles that talk about rampant sodomy and obviously their own efforts to control it because they're Europeans. The truth is that a look at any society's history shows that they were never just one way for long. So I'm guessing that they went through lots of different phases of tolerance and intolerance, depending on who was in charge and what the general mood was at the time.
Right.
Part of the problem here is that most of the records we have are Spanish, and there's a tiny outside possibility that they were just the slightest bit biased against the natives.
Come on.
I know, it seems unfair, but I'm just saying that's a possibility.
At the end of the day, nobody really got hurt.
Yeah, so those doing the documenting were painting a picture for other Europeans that benefited them personally. They didn't have a lot of motivation to be, historically accurate.
Right.
There were existing documents from the Aztec people themselves, but the Spanish destroyed many of them and tampered with others. So all we have are bits and pieces to go on. Anyway, with all of that as our background, our friend Xochipili has one more duty on his roster. It may be that he was brought into the Aztec pantheon from an outside group that was conquered, like the Toltecs, possibly. Remember the Toltecs? They were the nice rainbow flag-waving hippies of Mexico. Anyway, it seems that the Aztecs weren't able to fully co-opt the gods into their own way of thinking. So, along with getting bitches high as fuck, Xochipili was also in charge of protecting gay folks, including and possibly especially gay sex workers.
Oh, really?
So there you go. Which makes sense. Because, this dude's mind was like wide open, right? I mean, I did DMT one time and I was totally able to see through the bullshit of capitalism. Imagine how much a god who does shrooms can see.
Wow.
Well, that's interesting.
That's very cool.
God of
it's
the
very
sex
fascinating.
worker. Well, that's awesome.
The god of the gay sex workers and hallucinogens.
That's it.
Yeah. It
Xochipili.
actually does make sense.
It does make sense.
It does.
It's a first on our show.
Right. Exactly.
It's RuPaul.
Very
So
cool.
there you go. That's him.
All right on.
All right.
And
well,
we
let's
didn't- and none
let's
of us
adios.
have ever done drugs. So there you go.
Yeah, don't do drugs, kids. Or if you do, be careful. We don't care either way. We do. Just oh
And
fuck.
if you find some, email us at howtoheretic.
Right. Yeah.
Signing off.
All right. With that, let's move on. Hey, fellas.
Yeah, man.
Well, hello.
We're in danger of this being an almost lucrative thing that we do here. Not tremendous danger, but here's the thing: a lot of nice people enjoy our show and then want to donate to us,
Yes.
and we encourage this behavior as it is a glorious and wise thing for people to be doing.
Yeah, and look, money's not going to mean anything in a few weeks. Only gasoline and toilet
Gasoline.
paper.
Toilet paper, that's right.
Yeah, so it's a made up thing that we're not on the gold standard. It's just ones and zeros. So just
Right.
give us a bunch of those.
Though if you want to send us gold, we will tell you how to do that. Just email us. But for those of you who have signed up to be patrons of the show, we want to send our thanks. And the first people, and here's some people that we're going to thank. Thanks go to Carol, Jonathan, Eliza, Trent, Matt, let's see, Glowchild, thank you. And yeah, so I guess now I gotta assign some saints. We gotta do some sainting. I'm gonna give a saint to Lisa. Lisa, your saint is Saint Gregory of East Manhattan, Upper East Side of Manhattan. And Saint Gregory is the patron saint of fun haircuts, of paddling in small rentable boats, and of crazy dentists. It does line up at some point. I promise there's a connection, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, and that's right. If you happen to own your own little paddle boat, this is not the patron saint for you.
No.
That's right.
That's
Strictly
a
rentals.
totally different saint.
Strictly rentals. You don't want to fuck this up.
Right, exactly. So thank you so much to you, Lisa. And Uncle Doug, I'm going to have you give a patron saint to Take My Trump Money.
Well,
We will take it.
money. We will indeed.
Yeah.
Take my Trump money. Your saint is Saint Sacagawea of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yep. This is the patron. Sacagawea is the patron saint of green, the color green.
Yeah.
Okay.
Semi-professional sumo wrestlers and parasol-related amputations. So, yeah.
Okay. I was a quasi-professional.
Yeah,
sumo
her
wrestler.
origin story is nightmarish. Yeah, how this came
You
to
don't
be.
wanna know.
You don't want to know. You can't unhear it.
Right, it's true. Uncle Mark, I need you to do a saint. I know that you're doing double duty on this one, but I need you to do a saint for Josiah.
Josiah, I got you. So, of course, I mean, Josiah is it's like a saint's name unto itself, isn't it? But
Sure.
But unfortunately, Saint Josiah is not your patron saint, Josiah. You are watched over as you sleep by both Santa Claus and Saint Aloysius the Adequate of Thunder Bay, Ontario. And
Okay.
that is the patron saint of the gold standard, which we've already mentioned. Any officially sanctioned and properly licensed and insured hootenannies and Miller time, but only on alternating Tuesdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, first of all, you don't want to go to an unlicensed hootenanny. It sounds more fun than it is. I
It
promise.
gets out of control. It's like rolling down a hill. It gets out of control really fast. Right. Yeah.
Oh, but Uncle Mark, there's one more thing that you need to do. And I think that you know what that is. You have to provide a heaven
What?
for
That's
Lori.
right.
She has earned herself her own damned heaven.
And it's true. And I shall begin now. Lori, in a day far, far off, long after the current unpleasantness is just one of the world's least favorite and stupidest memories, and the war between the states for the last ventilator is over, you will glide from this mortal probation to the glory your time on earth built for you in the wild blue yonder, and that eternal glory is called normalcy. You see, Lori, God has seen this unending period of isolation and the stranger-than-fiction political response to it as your time served in purgatory. So once the doors of heaven open up to you, so will all the other doors. Your first glimpse of heaven is that of a crowded, bustling town square. The edges wispy with clouds pierced with dazzling rays of golden light. But you're not really interested in the lighting scheme at the moment. You're in a white-knuckle panic about all the goddamn people very much not social distancing, Lori. Holy balls, we're all going to die, you think. And this isn't just Fox News victims rallying around outside the Texas Capitol. These people look like they can read, and their foreheads slope at an angle that denotes possession of a frontal lobe. No,
Don't worry, we're not jerks at all.
no, these aren't decent. These are decent folk who in this life or the last wouldn't have dreamt of causing anyone else harm, even if when Jesus wrote the Constitution, he said you could go to Starbucks and cough on libtards, no matter how many people it killed, even yourself. It says so right in Matthew. No, these fine folks in your personal heaven were not zombie goobers who believed Lou Dobbs' investment portfolio mattered more than the lives of their own parents and children, but are all the people who did their damnedest to stay inside, to not hoard, who looked out for their neighbors and made sure their bodies did not become viral delivery systems to kill countless others. Your heaven is, for just once on this show, made up entirely of the good guys, and that includes you, Lori. Sensing your fear, St. Peter, okay, it's not all good guys, but the cliche is really important to the story, lays a hand on your shoulder and tells you to relax. There is no COVID-19 here, or 20 or 21, or even any of the COVID strains Trump started naming after his children. It's safe here, he soothes, and besides, the dead are pretty much immune to everything, so have a ball. Wow! Okay, you think. Before long, you find yourself on the monorail. It's heaven. Of course it has a fucking monorail, Lori. It's crowded with beaming, chatting commuters going about a normal commute to and from the greater Lori's Heaven metropolitan area. Hands on handrails and on each other, unmasked smiling faces pressed close in conversation. During COVID-19 through Ivanka 46, this would be the stuff of nightmares. But now, oddly, it feels good. In fact, it feels amazing. You get off at your stop and find yourself in a bustling shopping district, packed with families, old people, all kinds of people embracing, shaking hands, even lovers kissing. Out of nowhere, an orchestral flash mob stationed all over the place begins to play Beethoven's Ode to Joy, just like in the viral videos that have never, not even one time, made me cry. Oh my God, Lori, you had to die to feel so fully alive. Later, you're in a chic, crowded bar, packed into a booth with your beautiful crop of new friends, laughing until you cry, taking sips of each other's cocktails and sharing oysters. My God, to go from the world of the Andromeda strain to this is blowing your eternal mind, Lori. Glowing with the abundant joy of a world restored, and frankly, pretty tipsy, you ask the monorail captain, monorails have captains, it's the fucking rule, shut up, to drop you at home. As great as the day's been, it's also been a little overwhelming, and you could use some alone time. The captain gives you a strange glance as he scratches his head with his hook. You see, Lori, there's a catch. You knew there was going to be a catch. This heaven was designed, like I said, for the good guys, for the people who spent months, some of them alone, inside their houses for the good of their fellow human beings. So there really isn't any, quote, home. There's really no, quote, alone time. The markets, the bars, the crowded squares, the packed gyms, and yes, the monorail. That's pretty much it, Lori. When God designed this heaven, she figured you all had enough of home and alone time, so she didn't really bother with it. Sorry, now that I say it like that, it does sound pretty weird, but if you like oysters and appletinis and really crowded elevators and monorail rides, you really are in heaven. And it is your very own heaven, Lori, from which there is no respite and no escape. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Oh, Lori,
How
enjoy that
lucky
heaven.
Lori is.
Yeah.
enjoy an appletini on us forever.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Just what a treat for you. And how nice to be in a place where you don't see images of people hugging each other and go, ah! Have you guys, has that started happening to you guys? Have you started
totally.
like watching shows and like you're watching a TV show and everybody goes into a pool together and you're like, what are you doing?
Every show I'm watching, if they're standing too close together or they shake hands, I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, we saw a thing where a bunch of friends are meeting at a bar and like kissing, and I nearly shit my pants. I just, yeah.
Fortunately, none of us have called the cops on a TV show yet, but it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much to all of our patrons. You guys are amazing. If you want to be one of the patrons and you haven't decided to sign up yet, you can do so by going to our website, and that's the it's just howtoheretic.com, and clicking on the support us thing. And then you can become if you can't afford to do that, we totally understand. Now is not the time to be flippant with your money. But you can be flippant with 5 stars at any number of places that accept them.
Please do. Yeah, that makes us feel something, and we feel nothing. So
correct.
Yeah, drown us in stars.
Is numb a feeling?
It's just like bald as a hairstyle.
Yeah.
So there you go. Thanks so much to all of you, and let's move along.
Love ya.
Uncle Mark.
Present.
We've been all over the world with our gods. We've explored all kinds of places. I think we need to get a little European if we're going to do something.
Yeah, we've been north, south, east, west, haven't we? We've just been all over in our crazy exploration of that graveyard of bad old ideas.
Yes, indeed. Uncle Doug,
I'm feeling like Italian food today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Uncle
Doug,
Doug,
what can you put on our pizza?
Why don't I scratch that itch? Yeah.
What spaghetti can you throw into the garden?
What spicy meatball can I come up with? Well, dear uncles, if this show, and indeed this very episode, has demonstrated nothing else, it's that history is packed full of dead gods and goddesses whose usefulness to the species that conjured them has expired. And these deities were, in many cases, invented to explain and then govern over natural phenomena that had yet to be satisfactorily explained by the descendants of those that invented them in the first place. Some of these beings were assigned such prominent and ubiquitous phenomena that even though what they ruled over has been explained, their mystical power still casts a shadow over us even today. For example, we all know the name of Apollo, even though we know his chariot is a 432,000-mile wide nuclear furnace some 93 million miles away. We all know the name of Zeus.
It's a big chariot.
That's right. We all know the name of Zeus, even though we know that lightning is nothing more than the electrostatic discharge that occurs when an electrically charged region of the atmosphere and the ground temporarily equalize themselves. And we all know the name of Thor, even though we clearly know that the abs are nothing more than the result of steam chicken and countless Hemsworthian crunches. So, however, there are gods and goddesses whose dominions seem, at least to us, to be comically and pathetically narrow, and whose light and or reputation no longer shine in our modern and increasingly doomed world. Indeed, we've covered many of these pointless deities on this show even today. And this is certainly the case with the goddess I'd like to talk about today. I'd like to talk about the ancient Roman goddess Cardea, or Cardea. I don't know how to pronounce
Cardi
it.
B.
Cardi B.
Cardi B. She's fantastic. I love her.
No, this is the first episode. It's Cardea.
Oh, right. That's her mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Cardea's mythology is surprisingly robust for a goddess that most of us have probably never heard of. In fact, as we'll see, she is a foundational goddess to the Roman mythology. Indeed, she is credited with having saved the life of Procus, who would go on to be the grandfather of Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome. Mm-hmm. So, what was the divine purview that charge of this mysterious and powerful goddess? The door hinge. That's right, the door hinge. Now,
obviously,
yeah, as most gods and goddesses of the time, she had more than one responsibility, but her primary one was the humble hinge. Now, before we go on to discuss her story, let's stop for just a second and talk about what a truly game-changing technology the door hinge must have been, and what a world before the hinge must have looked like.
Yeah.
The invention and the inventor of the hinge are lost in the mists of time, and the best we can do is look for when hinges first started showing up in either archaeology or literature. The first known hinge appears to be what is known as the Hattusa pivot.
No, it's Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Boo.
Hey, boo. Boo. That's a joke so bad I'm astonished I didn't write it.
You know what? It's a good thing the door doesn't still exist, because that's a big motherfucking hinge.
The Hattusa pivot was from the ancient Hittite city of Hattusa in modern-day Turkey. It dates back to about 1600 BCE and is pretty much nothing more than a depression in a stone in a doorway, but it seems to be the first evidence of an actual hinge. The trail goes fairly dark until the appearance of bronze hinges in Egypt around 800 BCE, which is the same century that a small trade city right on the other side of the Mediterranean named Rome was founded. So hinges are mentioned in the Bible twice, including in 1 Kings, which claims Solomon's temple apparently had hinges of pure gold around 600 BCE. The other mention is in Proverbs 26:14, which is a clear reference to Uncle Doug during quarantine, quote, "As the door turneth upon its hinges, so doth the slothful upon his bed." Fuck you, Proverbs.
Can I just say how utterly worthless a gold hinge would be? That's a very soft metal. It is a terrible idea.
Yeah, we've talked about this on our episode about the Ark of the Covenant, that it had these big gold hooks on the side to put the poles through, which would eventually just go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Terrible
gold is
idea.
very soft.
Yes. Now, let's try and imagine a world without hinges. Prior to this invention, people hung or placed pieces of wood or woven blankets or mats in front of their doors and weighted them down with whatever they could find. Can you imagine the comfort and security it must have meant to be able to swing a thick piece of wood easily back and forth in your front door? If your only protection against the weather, animals, and enemies was a fucking woven mat, you can see that something as seemingly simple as a hinge might merit its own goddess. So that brings us back to Cardea. When I first started reading up on Cardea, I thought she would be just some silly lost goddess that would be good for a laugh. However, I found several legitimately surprising links to our modern era. Surprising, because apart from sanitation, medicine, education, wine, public order, irrigation, roads, the fresh water system, public health, and peace, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Right.
So, like I mentioned before, Cardea is the goddess of more than one thing. This is partly because the Augustan poet Ovid conflated Cardea with a much lesser goddess named Carna. Even though Carna was a lesser goddess, she was the goddess of the heart, and her name is the origins of the terms carnal, carnivore, etc. This conflation of the names Carna and Cardea, along with the addition of the dominion over the heart to Cardea's powers, is also apparently the origin for the terms cardio, which is the thing that I am not doing during quarantine.
Right.
And then, I've got to say, a side note, all this talk of medical science reminds me of the do not resuscitate order that I forged Uncle Mark's name on and keep in my breast pocket at all times.
It's fine. You know what? It's fine. I didn't get you anything for Christmas, so that's fine.
Ever. Carna also had the power to ward off striges, which were screeching, blood-sucking, owl-like monsters that will come to play in a second. Carna's origins are much more mysterious, with some scholars claiming her to be a subterranean goddess and some a lunar goddess. Among her many lesser dominions were such elements as beans and digestion. So, goddess for everything. But with her conflation,
at least we know what she sounded like.
With her conflation with Cardea by Ovid, all these attributes got combined into the lexicon of Cardea. Crazily, Cardea was not the only goddess of the doorway. There were actually two other gods that helped out with the task.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Forculus was the god of the actual door, and Lemontinus, if I'm pronouncing it, was the god of the threshold. So yeah, there were three gods for the door.
Wow. How do you keep track?
I know, right?
I know, you got to pray to three people just to enter your house.
No doubt. One of the most important events in the origin of Cardea was, of course, her rape by the god of the beginnings and endings, Janus, because all ancient Romans were apparently rapists. Janus, being the god of beginnings, is the origin of the name of the first month of the year, interestingly. The story goes that Cardea, who would often hunt in a sacred grove, had many gentlemen callers that would come looking for her, seemingly uninterested, but living in a particularly rapey period that we refer to now as history. She would promise her would-be lovers that she would meet them in a cave and then she would disappear into the woods. This kind of cock-teasery would, of course, mean that what came next she deserved. When she tried to pull this same "I'll meet you in the alley behind the bar," only to disappear in an Uber trick that Uncle Doug has fallen for all too many times on Janus, she forgot that he had literally two faces, so he could always see what was coming and going, and so he saw her attempted assertion of her own free will, grabbed her, and raped her. As payment for her services, he granted her dominion over the hinge. So there you go.
Wow, what a great trade-off that turned out to be.
Exactly. Among her other powers was the ability to protect against the aforementioned striges, which were white-winged, hook-taloned creatures that looked like demonic owls. They liked the taste of infant blood, and interestingly, the singular for striges is strix, and a group of striges is called an Ivanka. In one of Ovid's tales, Cardea banished a strix from a child's room, but not before it bit him. She purified the threshold with a sprig of arbutus, which is kind of a strawberry-like plant, and hung a bundle of hawthorn in his window. Hawthorn, it is thought, is what made up the crown of thorns on Jesus' head. Finally, a sow was sacrificed to take the place of the boy's soul in the afterlife, because you know what they say, if you want to get into this boy's soul, you'll have to pay the troll toll.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. You smell that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia a mile away.
This boy was the aforementioned Procus, grandfather of Romulus and Remus. So
interesting.
Yeah. Cardea's place among the early Roman deities was pretty central, actually literally central. The word Cardo was not only the name given to the hinge, but it was the name of the central north-south street around which Roman cities were organized. And that is how we have the term cardinal.
Okay.
Yeah, this practice of having main north-south cardo around which you would build a city was used across the Roman Empire, and it is still actually used today in city planning, including in our own hometown of Salt Lake City. So yeah. And then the cardo was also a tenet in how Roman legions organized and marched their formations. So, yeah, that's kind of it. The next time you hear of a cardinal of the Catholic Church having heart trouble in the doorway of the main drag in Vatican City, remember Cardea.
That's right. A lot hinges on that god.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow! You're in a punny sort of place right now.
I don't really have a lot else to do for most of the show.
Well, the fact that I somehow made it through this without writing a terrible unhinged joke is a testament to my restraint.
To something.
To something. I just think, next time one of my doors squeaks, I don't know who to pray to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the god of the hinge.
All right.
Apologies.
All right. Well, with that, let us close the door.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's goddamn show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. If you know how to do a hinge, send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you're a cop, you have to tell us so, and you can do that at our voicemail, which is 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. You can also tell me you're a cop on Twitter. I'm there at HowToHeretic.
And thanks to our incredible patrons.
Yes, and thank you so much to Cody Layton for editing the show in isolation.
Yeah, and thanks to all of you friends for tuning in.
Bye, friends. Stay home. Wash your hands.
Bye.